Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the 13th of February 2020. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome. Welcome as you come in. Uh, this is kind of like my usual Thursdays when I do this. I'm really off schedule. As you can tell, I'm coming also at an odd time of the hour. But there are a number of reasons for that. Scheduling is the primary one. So I'll just get right into this. And the reason why I decided to do this today is because it's Thursday. No kid, right? It's Thursday, and if you know anything about the news cycle, if you want people to know what's going on, if you want them to know, you don't wait till Friday, because then people, have the weekend coming and they've got other things that they're doing, and so they're not going to listen, or it's not going to make the impact. But if something's going to happen this week, today's got to be the day. Now, if it's something that they don't want you to know about, they'll wait until tomorrow. I think most of us understand how this news cycle thing works, but I think that's basically what we're looking at right now. So this is kind of a heads up to say that I think that maybe today some big things will happen. Now, we've had some things happening all week that have been pretty significant, but I'm not calling any of this earth-shattering. 4 DOJ prosecutors that either withdraw or one of them resigned from the DOJ, but 3 of them just withdrew from the case, all to bring attention again to cause a problem for President Trump and Barr, which I don't know how that'll work out, but of course Schumer and those guys are already on it, complaining about it. And we know the history of how this has happened before in other cases, and Schumer and these types never spoke up and complained about it at all. But that's kind of the problem, where you say, well, the other administration didn't get in trouble for this, so why can't we? And it's just a big game that they play. And it's very unfortunate because it just rips the country apart, but that's what Lionel, of course, would call politics, and I find it disgusting myself, as most of you do. But before we go any further, let me know if the sound is okay. It should be 5 by 5 from the way I'm seeing it here. It looks like it's working out just fine, and that's, of course, the big thing that I do concern myself with, is if the sound is sufficient enough for us to conduct our business. Okay, it's good. Thank you, Tracy Smith. I appreciate that. Okay, so why did I call this "The Leftist Intention on Aggression is No Longer Debatable"? Well, if you have been paying attention to the news, some of this has to do with preparation on the so-called coronavirus. I realize that. They're opening up some detention centers and military installations close to airports, and the claim is that it's going to be used primarily for those who are coming here from China. However, having worked on some of the FEMA programs back in the 90s, I'm very suspicious about what's happening, especially when I see things like this. And I'm going to go right into the Second Amendment. You'll notice I have Colonel Jeff Cooper on there again, whose statement, if you read it, as a matter of fact, let me just blow that up for a minute before we really get going on this, so that you'll know what I'm discussing here. Let's blow this up so you can see. I'm going to disappear for a minute, but I want you to see this, okay? So that's the reason why most of you will recognize this from before when I've had it up. Colonel Jeff Cooper, he was retired United States Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel, got into basically teaching firearms and tactical combat training to law enforcement, military, and civilians. And this is what he said, and I've quoted this before, and we're going to have a little break about halfway through this where I'll play you the little clip that I made on his contribution. But basically he says, if violent crime is to be curbed, it is only the intended victim who can do it. It can't be the government, and we're going to talk about what's happening here in just a few minutes. The felon does not fear the police, and he fears neither judge nor jury. Therefore, what he must be taught to fear is his victim. And I've talked about that before, and these governments do not want us to be armed, because then we pose a threat to their criminality and their tyranny. And I think most of us understand that. Okay, so I wanted to put that up there again so that you'll see that and know that that's kind of where the crux of this entire thing is going to be today for a number of reasons. Let me get back to the chat here. Not that we're going to the chat yet. Okay, so on the Second Amendment, you know what's going on in Virginia. I'm not going to repeat that. You should know what's happening in Arizona, okay, because that started up this week as well. They're doing the same thing as what they call, and I'll just call them that too. I'm not politically correct, and I know it doesn't make any difference because of the way they define things anyway. An assault weapons ban, okay, and I know people are going to say they're not assault weapons. I understand that, okay, but they're controlling the language. Let's just forget about it, okay? Let's just go with it. It's not a big deal. The important thing to know here is that this is happening now across the country. Maryland just announced yesterday that it's pushing a bill through as well to ban all semi-automatic weapons. It's kind of funny to me. I get a kick out of this. They say, we're going to ban semi-automatic weapons and high-capacity magazines. Well, if you're going to ban all semi-automatics, you don't even have to ban high-capacity magazines because that's what they're used for. It's like these people don't understand what's going on here. But at any rate, so you have Maryland and Virginia now that are doing this, and nobody is stopping them other than the people trying to rise up and say no. But they're not paying attention to us, okay? And that's why I labeled this, the leftist intention on aggression is no longer debatable. If Virginia, if this thing doesn't stop in their other house, and then it goes to the governor for signature, now it'll be a few months before it goes into effect, I think. I don't know all the details. But regardless of that, we also have the same thing happening in Maryland. Do you see what's happening there? They're surrounding D.C. I mean, I look at it from a military point of view. This is an envelopment. I mean, D.C. is not our friend anyway. But if they do this around D.C., what are they doing? Okay, they're preventing the people from protecting themselves against what's coming. So I'm very worried about that. The flyer, and it's an outlier, the flyer out here in Arizona is very troubling, but it's not surprising to me. Of course, then we've got Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington State. We're having some problems, of course, in I think it's Kentucky, and of course in the Northeast, Illinois, of course, Florida. Why do I bring all this up? Because we should know from history, when they get to the point where they're starting to seize weapons, and they can use any excuse they want, okay, no matter what excuse they want, they're getting ready to move against you in an aggressive manner. Will our military help them? Like I've said before, I can't trust the military. I can't. When you look at the top commanders, the generals, etc., that have made it through the Obama purges, we're going to talk about General Kelly today and what he's doing to President Trump. All of these types of things don't give me a warm, fuzzy feeling that we're going to be protected by the people that we've paid to do the job. Because the FBI certainly hasn't protected us, right? No, neither has the CIA. So what makes you think the military will? And I know people get, hey, Roy, they're country boys, they're the trigger pullers, they're not going to do this. I wouldn't be so sure. Even if they don't, there will be somebody who does. And this is getting very, very, very serious. So I wanted to bring that up this morning right off the bat, that Maryland now has gone down the same path as Virginia, and Arizona as well is on its way as well. I've had a lot of comments on my Twitter channel. Some were insults, actually. And, again, I don't mind if people disagree with my position, but when you start insulting me and calling me names, I'm just going to block you. I'm not going to play any games with you anymore. So I blocked a guy yesterday. You guys can go see that on my Twitter line. You won't know who it is probably because, of course, he's blocked, so he's no longer shown on my Twitter line. But I'm just getting tired of this. I don't mind disagreements, but I also don't like name calling. And what I really don't like is if you have a strong position that you can defend, that's fine. But if you have blinders on and you're following a cult of personality, I'm not going to deal with you anymore. Okay, the cult of personality with me is proof that you don't know anything, and I'm done with you. All right. If you choose a cult of personality over principle, we're done. All right, because we can't play this game anymore. It's too late. We're too close to some really dangerous things at this point. On that agenda, I've heard that, oh, these are just states passing these laws. Well, unfortunately, again, and look, I want President Trump to succeed in his stated goals. The problem is that that's not what's happening, and I've talked about that before. And if you don't see the problem with his rhetoric not meeting what's happening on the ground, then I can't help you. Okay? He's so focused on the economy, and I can understand some reasons why for that, but at the same time, there are things that you can do, and there are other things that you can't leave undone either. And I don't want to get into all the details of that, but I've got to just tell you, these people were saying to me, well, those are just state laws. I'm voting for Trump. Huh? If President Trump isn't going to protect your Second Amendment rights when the states try to violate them, he's not going to do it when the federal government does. Okay, I'm sorry. That's just going to be that way. It's going to be placed in some kind of a situation where they have plausible deniability that they're supporting the Second Amendment, when in reality, what they're doing is they're surreptitiously doing it, like with these red flag laws, which he has already given the green light for. Now, I know you people have said, well, he's backed off of that, now he's talking about background checks. Look, he's not doing anything. They should have already gone in. I had a lady put on my Twitter line this morning, oh, well, Northam has an indictment against him already, and there are 135,000 more, and all of these MSM people and corporate heads and government officials, 135,000 indictments. And I said, nonsense. This hopium has got to stop, people. You can't believe anything unless you see it. Once you see it, you can believe it. Other than that, you can't. And this person cited some off person who has all these people listed with their pictures and USC Title 18 violation, da-da-da-da. I mean, anybody could put that up there. It doesn't mean anything. Where did they get that information? So at any rate, I don't see Northam getting in trouble for killing babies or for violating the rights of Virginians. I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. Now, from the federal government, you've got an AG who doesn't believe in the Second Amendment. He wants red flag laws. And in that regard, I answered one of these people last night, and I said, look, don't you realize that Barr was given the go-ahead? I mean, this person said, well, Trump's not going to allow it to happen. He already has. His AG Barr has gone forward. We talked about this 6 months ago, where they were going to have a program where they were going to monitor, using surveillance systems, different social media, your communications, etc., to see if you were going to do something bad. And it's called Project Guardian. And this person responded to me when I sent that to him and said, oh, I already know about that. Well, then if you don't understand what's happening here, you really have your blinders on. And I don't know what Trump's doing here. People have been saying, well, he's done what he's done so that he can expose the bad people, and so we'll all know who they are. Well, I got to tell you something. It's getting dangerously close to the point where if you lose, you've already lost your First Amendment, basically. You've already lost it. Really, you have. At least on social media. I mean, there's some of us that continue with it, but there's no kidding that we're being shadow banned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The Second Amendment's not far behind. And if they won't, people are saying, well, the federal government, if the states are violating your rights, they have agreed to a Republican form of government and to make their laws subservient to the United States Constitution. Okay? And there have been Supreme Court decisions that have gone both ways, supporting the Second Amendment and not supporting the Second Amendment. I put out a thing a long time ago, and I actually put it up, I think, on Twitter again the other day because another couple of people were putting it up, about the situation with Marbury versus Madison. And I meant to put it up this morning, and I didn't. I want to read this to you. If you don't know what Marbury versus Madison was, it's a very important decision that was made. Gosh, if I've even got any more. I guess maybe I don't. Rats. Anyway, Marbury versus Madison said, it was an 1809 decision or something like that, just because a legislature passes a law, a statute, doesn't make it legal, doesn't make it constitutional. And in fact, If it violates the Constitution in any way, it is null and void at its inception. That's basically what Marbury versus Madison says. Yet our government, as we all know, violate the Constitution with impunity at all times because we've been led to believe that just because a legislature passes a law, it's absolutely constitutional enforceable. And the answer to that is no. Go look up Marbury versus Madison. If you haven't seen it before, I think it's on my timeline, and you'll see what we're talking about. Sorry I don't have it. Okay. Marbury, M-A-R-B-U-R-Y versus Madison, M-A-D-I-S-O-N. And it was a decision that was made back in the early 1800s on these very same situations. So, using that type of thing, when there were civil rights violations, and both Lieutenant Colonel Schaefer and I have talked about this, when there were civil rights violations in the South, the president was able to nationalize the National Guard and even use regular Army units to go in there and ensure that those people's civil rights weren't violated. And the same thing must be done on the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, etc. But notice it isn't. As a matter of fact, Barr is going through with this Project Guardian. So they're increasing surveillance, and they're coming after your means to self-protect. Now, why would they do that? You think it's because they're worried about you and your child's safety and crime and all that? No. They're getting ready to move on you, and we've heard Alex Jones talk about that. They're getting ready, as I've said in the statement here, the leftist intention on aggression is no longer debatable. They're coming to take your weapons or to make you felons if you don't turn them in, and this is going to turn to bloodshed. It's as plain as day. And that's what they want. They win. It's not a catch-22 for them. It's a catch-22 for us. They win either way because our federal government will not protect our rights, and the states will. Some states will. You have these sanctuary states and sanctuary cities on the Second Amendment, right? But look what Barr's doing on the immigration thing. And I'm not saying it's wrong on this because immigration is a federal responsibility. So they're pushing that sanctuary cities and states and all that. They're suing them, right? Barr is, you know about that. But the problem is that since they don't care about the Constitution, they're going to cite this as an example to come after sanctuary cities, counties, states on the Second Amendment. Guaranteed, because Barr's a slime ball. Yes, I have my coffee this morning. I try not to slurp, but it's really hot. Barr's done some good things. I'm not saying he hasn't. But his overall objective is to be a hammer for the federal government and to save its institutions. A lot of people are saying, oh, he's moving forward and, Durham's going to do this and, they're firing, they called out these prosecutors on the Stone case and et cetera, et cetera. And then we heard Alex Jones yesterday, I don't know where he got this, supposedly from some Intell person somewhere, that there have been hundreds of people that have been let go in the State Department, the Department of Defense, and et cetera, DOJ, et cetera, et cetera. I have looked and I see no evidence of that whatsoever. Do I look on the mainstream media? Not just there. I look at some other things too, and I'm not seeing it anywhere. Okay? All we've seen is the 70 or so NSC people that have been told to leave and the 4 prosecutors. Now, on that note, Headlines with a Voice, if you looked at my timeline yesterday on YouTube, on my community tab, I bring this up because, of course, the motto for my on my channel for years has been, the intelligence community is our most dangerous domestic enemy. I've been warning about this for a long time. The secret societies that were put together with the help of the banking system, whether in our time or in historical times, has always been the same. It goes after the very people it says it's trying to help, to protect. That's where the secret societies go. They pretend to be one thing when they're really something else. And I've been warning about this in my life, since I was probably in high school. Well, just so you know, Headlines with a Voice, Nancy Morgan Hart, if you haven't checked it, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, did a video yesterday entitled it, Our Most Dangerous Domestic Enemy. has a picture of Robert Muller on there, and then it says Lieutenant Colonel Potter was right. Let me put this up there. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. You see that? It doesn't want to. I haven't got it on automatic focus, so it might be a little difficult to see. But that's what she put up. I do not have the link in the box below. I just want you to go to Headlines with a Voice and go see that because it's extremely, extremely important. Okay? She talks about this whole situation with the IC, but particularly with the FBI. And what she's citing is, it was really funny because I was going to bring this article up yesterday myself. And then when I saw that she did this, I just decided to back off and tell everybody to go see hers, and which I'm doing now. But I want to give you some background because it links in to everything that's happening. So back at the time that the Mueller report came out, Conservative Treehouse, the last refuge, those people on Twitter and on the web, came out with a story about the 40 FBI agents that Mueller was using. Okay, 40 FBI agents who knew 2 days into the investigation that this whole thing was bogus, and yet they continued to do what for Mueller? What were they doing? Where did they go? Where are they now? We need to know their names. We need to have them in front of Congress. We need to know what's going on. Barr's not going to let that happen, and he's going to let Wray slide through with it. It's writing on the wall. It's very obvious. None of those people have been called to task. Will they? I don't know. Not unless Trump's serious and Barr is serious. Okay? At the very minimum. Okay. So the Conservative Treehouse brought up this problem with these 40 FBI agents that are roaming around violating all these people's rights and conjuring up all these false charges, et cetera, et cetera. Where are they now? That was asked when the Mueller report came out. Okay? Well, when the 4 DOJ U.S. attorneys and assistant U.S. attorneys either resigned or withdrew because of the Stone situation with the fight over the sentencing, when that happened, Conservative Treehouse put up the exact same article like yesterday or the day before, and then added in the problem with the 4 prosecutors, and then brought up, well, the 4 prosecutors are not nearly as much of a problem. They're a problem, but they're not nearly as much as a problem as the 40 FBI agents that are still out there doing their thing. And they made the point that I've been making for many, many years. Okay? And the many, many years that I've been saying this is that the FBI, despite Sean Hannity and despite Dan Bongino and despite all these people that want to say our glorious and wonderful FBI, it's a den of iniquity. It's been shown. They're trying to say it was just the top people that did this stuff to Stone and to General Flynn, etc. No. And the Conservative Treehouse makes the same statement. This is proof that the FBI is rotten to the core. And in fact, as I've been saying, our entire intelligence community is, and Lionel's even starting to say it now. He's saying it's not the deep state that's our dangerous problem. It's the intelligence community. It's the intelligence state. And he's absolutely right. That's exactly correct, because that's the framework upon which all of the force and fear comes from. And it's got to be dismantled. But you see what happened to Kennedy when he tried it. And of course, if Trump has been serious, he hasn't really attacked the intelligence community. He's just said he doesn't trust their intelligence. But it's got to go further than that. Okay, it's got to go a lot further than that. And we have to realize that this is a dangerous situation we're in. But if we don't do anything about it, we're going down, ladies and gentlemen, if it's not already too late. This attack on the Second Amendment is so that you can't stand up against the intelligence state and the people that support it, like the banking system, the New World Order, Soros, etc., however you want to look at it, so that you can't protect yourself from that, that you'll be subject to what's happening to the Chinese people right now. And Chris Ann Hall pointed out that it looks like they're shooting these sick, supposedly sick people now, where a lot of those videos don't look like they're sick at all. It looks like they're rounding up dissidents claiming they're sick. And we knew that was going to be the excuse. And that's what's in Barr's thing on this Project Guardian, mental and medical issues. They can come after you. No Fourth Amendment right. They just take it away from you, assume that because of that they can just come in and take your property and lock you up. This is not where we want to go, but this is where Barr and Trump are forcing us to go. I'm sorry. And people like Lindsey Graham and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they pretend to be at odds out there with each other. Who is standing up for your rights? First, second, and fourth. Who is doing it? Am I really emphatic this morning? Yeah, because we're on the precipice. Changing subjects here for just a second. News came out that Barr has a vetting process for Rudy Giuliani's information on Ukraine. Okay, I like that. I've been calling for the Justice Department to use these independent investigators for some time. It's interesting that they've talked about that for Rudy Giuliani, but I haven't seen any evidence from either Tom Fitton or Chris Farrell from Judicial Watch that the DOJ has asked them to help them with the investigation, have a vetting process for their information, which is right at Barr's fingertips. There's no excuse for him not using it. And people will say, oh, Roy, well, how can you say that? You don't know if he's using it or not. I'm from Missouri. I believe it when I see it. Oh, it's got to be kept secret. No, it isn't. You think you're keeping it secret from the intelligence community and the deep state? Are you kidding me? I've heard that line all along with Trump, too. Oh, he can't tell everybody because, he's sneaking up on the deep state and the intelligence community. There's no way, ladies and gentlemen. There's no way. 135,000 indictments. This hopium has got to stop. It's an effective way to keep us from doing everything. And now, as I've constantly said, the First Amendment is going to keep you from defending your Second Amendment and vice versa because they rely on each other. And now, look what's happening in Maryland and Arizona. Arizona, of all. I know they're controlled by Dems now because the people there, the immigration thing is totally out of control. Mark Pantano, who I've referenced several times, is absolutely right. And so is Ann Coulter. If we never get control of our immigration, we're going to lose our country. Not that we don't want to be magnanimous and all of that, but we have to save our nation, our culture. But you know what? Our nation and culture has also killed 60 million babies, and we have people like Northam who kill them after they're born now. Maybe we don't deserve, as I've said, to be saved. Maybe we don't. Has Trump not done anything on this because the people have to stand up on a few things on their own? And this is one of those things? Maybe. But he didn't help by saying what he said or doing what he did and failing to do certain things. By their fruits you shall know them. Now, does he have to be secret? Well, not in a matter like this. I've called it this way before. There's a scripture, you don't like me doing this, but it says, if the trumpet sounds an uncertain sound, you won't know that there's a problem. So the trumpet has to sound strong and it has to be certain. And the people have to understand exactly what it is. And if Trump's playing games, thinking that he's fooling the deep state and the intelligence community, it's a joke. No, what it's doing is it's overcoming us. And I know there are people out there that don't want to hear that. I want Trump to be what he says he is. And but I'm no longer buying that he can't do what he needs to do. Playing devil's advocate and saying, yes, he allowed all these things to happen in the NSC and to Stone and to Flynn, et cetera, so that he could have proof of the bad people in the government. Okay, I can kind of understand that. As Rich Higgins has said, and myself, when you're attacking, you're going to have casualties and you can't stop the forward momentum of the combat force to take care of those casualties. That's what you have medics for and hospitals and things like that. But you know what? We don't see those. We don't see anybody coming to the aid of Flynn and Stone, but individuals like Sidney Powell. I would like to think that President Trump is exposing the bad and that he's going to act. And this week, it appears that some things are starting to happen. We didn't get any arrests like Greg Rubini talked about that he anticipated were going to happen, and I gave caveats on that and got very good source information that that wasn't going to happen. That was contrary to what Rubini said. Not saying it can't still happen. But all the while, we've got to watch what happens starting today. If they're going to move on the deep state, intelligence state people, it can't stay that much longer. What I mean, they can't stay. What I mean is stay in the sense of not do it, okay? Blocking it. They can't wait that much longer. There are crazy things happening. Or is it because, as I said, Trump wants the people to stand up for the rights as they did in the Virginia rally? Well, that didn't do a whole lot of good, did it? The Virginia legislature still is moving ahead. And it's given impetus for states like Maryland, Arizona, etc. And there are going to be more, ladies and gentlemen, Colorado, etc. It's going to get worse. Unless, and it's not going to happen under Barr, I'm sorry, it won't, unless Trump says no, that is a constitutional right, and we're not going to let you do that. We're going to sue you, just like Barr is suing the sanctuary cities right now. That's what should happen. It should be on the reverse, that the suits go against the states and the cities that are trying to take away your Second Amendment rights. But you know what? Do you think they got the guts to do that? No, because, again, the intelligence state is in control despite all appearances that Trump is forging ahead and is going to defeat it. I'm just warning you. I don't buy it. Could he do something about it? Yes, he could, but it's going to take some cojones, and I'm not certain that they're there. I'm still not. I'd love him to do what he says, and I keep repeating that because everybody says, why are you so against Trump? I'm not. He said he was going to do these things. He just said it in the rally last week. Your Second Amendment, I'm going to protect your Second Amendment. Yeah? How? When you got Barr doing Project Guardian, you got Graham saying they're going to be red flag laws, right? Oh, that was last summer. Nothing's changed. They haven't backed off and said no. Oh, Trump's not going to sign it. What are you talking about? Project Guardian's going even without any kind of an executive order. There's no control in the executive branch. None. And it's to our detriment, not to the intelligence state. I'm beating all these different topics because I'm trying to tell you how much danger we're in. Things aren't rosy. Things aren't getting better. Our debt is way out of line, and the excuse for that is, well, Trump wants to break the banking system, and then he'll reinstitute it, after he breaks it, Well, unfortunately, that's going to impact you more than anything else. Okay. Let me back off of all that for a minute. I think you understand how concerned I am about it. This thing in Maryland and Arizona. There's finally talk that there's going to be UCMJ, that's the Uniform Code of Military Justice, military action against Lieutenant Vindman for what he did to his commander-in-chief. People are trying to equate me to Vindman. Big difference. I'm telling Trump to do his job, right? I'm not under the oath. I'm not subject to the UCMJ anymore. I'm a private citizen telling Trump, we hired you to do this job and you're not doing it. What the hell's the matter with you? Vindman, on the other hand, took part in a subversive act, in a seditious act. And General Kelly is saying that he did the right thing. General Kelly, who used to be Marine Corps general who was first in the DHS under Trump and then became his chief of staff and then was replaced again later by Mulvaney. Look, none of those generals are for our constitutional republic. None of them. They were all those who made it through the Obama purges. So Kelly has come out and said Lieutenant Colonel Vindman did the right thing. My gosh. No, I'm afraid that's not true. A lieutenant colonel and his idea about policy does not trump that, no pun intended, of the president who was elected by the people. And this is even turning into a battle amongst people like Kelly. And you can bet he's not saying anything. I don't trust Milley. McRaven, as I called this out last summer, McRaven, Petraeus, McChrystal, and several others have already moved over supporting the intelligence state in this coup because they see it as being a win situation, or they wouldn't have done it. Because even in retirement, you're subject to the UCMJ. Well, I tell you what, if they don't go after Lieutenant Colonel Vindman and haul him in on charges of insubordination and there's some other, I won't go through all of what those are. If they don't do it, know that the fix really is in, as far as the military is concerned. Will they take Vindman out as a show? I don't know. I don't think they have any reason to pretend weakness right now. So I'm not certain about that. I think I've covered everything I wanted to, just real quick, that I was concerned with today. Let me check my notes here again, so I know you can hear my. Let's see, how did Rush Limbaugh does this and Alex Jones does. That is kind of a cool sound if you have the right kind of mic. I don't think mine's quite that good, but okay. Let's make sure here. Okay, I'll believe that Rudy Giuliani's stuff is going to be taken seriously when they also bring in Tom Fitton and Chris Farrell's information from Judicial Watch. I've already mentioned that, but I want to mention it again because I hear all this talk, but I'm really not sure about what's going on here. It takes time. That's the excuse. It's either the intelligence community either says that's classified and we're not going to talk about it, or you have somebody like Barr that says this takes time. Yeah, well, okay. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's somebody should be already going down right now. Our faith has to be rewarded once in a while. And this little thing here, and actually I was going to entitle this until I decided to change this video title. I was going to say that the DOJ withdrawals and resignations are not prosecutions. That's not a hopeful sign, especially when you realize that they're just trying to set Barr, if Barr is even real, but set up Trump and Barr to have another issue that the Senate or the House, probably the House, will come after Trump and Barr for obstruction again of some sorts. Who knows? I might as well mention this. This is going to tick off some people, but I think I've got to tell you my feelings on it. The stop and frisk that Rudy Giuliani started in New York and that President Trump is calling for. And remember, President Trump has already advocated violating the Constitution on a number of issues. Red flag laws, take the guns first, due process later. He says he's the law and order president. Well, law and order also means that you follow the Constitution, and the government should set an example for that, and they're not. Stop and frisk, if you have a suspicion, is reasonable. Okay? If somebody looks out of place, when I was a police officer, I even did this. If somebody looks out of place, it looks like they're doing something suspicious, I would approach them. And if my suspicion was heightened, I would say, I'm going to pat you down for my safety and for yours. That's kind of a stop and frisk, the type that I would say is justified when you have a reasonable suspicion that something isn't right. Does that mean, and I'm sorry folks, but I got to use this as an example, does that mean a black person in a white neighborhood, is that reasonable suspicion? Not in my book, okay? Not in my book. Now, if they're, in a hoodie and they're sneaking around the side of a building, or it looks like they are, yeah, that's reasonable suspicion. If I see a bulge underneath, from a distance, and when I say a distance, I mean arm's length or more, what is that? I got to see if that's a gun. Okay, that's one thing. But stop and frisk without reasonable suspicion at the very least, better probable cause, violates the Fourth Amendment. It can be abused, is my point. And more often than not, it is. Just like the red flag laws, and we've already got evidence of this, it's already happened. As a matter of fact, Douglas Ducote, if some of you people follow Douglas Ducote, the retired U.S. Army guy who also got into federal law enforcement, and he's a big burly guy, and deep voice like that. If you know who I'm talking about, he was a victim of these idiotic red flag things, except they accused him of being involved in some kind of terrorist activity, merely from an anonymous phone call. This is out of control. It's out of control. And there's more of that's going to happen. I think I finished my point on that. I hope so. Okay. So we can't have quick fixes like stop and frisk and red flag laws, etc., that violate the very foundations of what we claim to hold dear. No, the fact of the matter is that the best way to handle this, to make everybody safer, there might be accidental discharges and there have to be some controls, I agree, okay? But the best way to handle the problems, both from our crime standpoint, the terrorist standpoint, from China's invading us standpoint, or getting invaded by the insurrectionists, the drug cartels in Mexico, whatever, the best way is for the American people, as Trump said, remember he said, now I consider carry to be a constitutional right, okay? But he was talking about, and I'll just give him this, okay? Just because he said it. If you have a concealed weapons permit in one state, we're going to make it like it is for the driver's license compacts. It's going to be good in all states because it's not a privilege, it's a right. Whatever happened to that? Because that is the answer to making people safer. But they're never going to allow that, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you know that. They're never going to allow it because in the end, what they're really trying to do is they're trying to have the monopoly of power over the American people. Because they're working, as my topic here says, they're working to take control of us completely, even those that claim to be on our side. So as Jeff Cooper said, however, the real way to do this is, as I've stated already. So let me play this again. I've done it in the past several times, but it'll give you a couple minutes to get off of hearing me, get all upset here. This is only about a 2 to 3 minute video, and you've seen it before if you've been on my channel for any length of time. But I want you to pay attention to it. The Second Amendment is it's what defines America. Those Bill of Rights are what really, even more than the Constitution itself, even though Bill of Rights are a part of that, more than anything else, the Bill of Rights defines us, as well as the writ of as habeas corpus. Okay, those are the things that define us. And if we give those up, then all the battles that we've fought to retain our country and our liberties were for nothing. And we have people telling us that that's okay now. And most of you, I'm preaching to the choir. I know you don't need to hear this, but I want you to just know that I'm aware of it. And it's not because I want to attack Trump. If we see something happen today, again, I came on today because I think today's a big day. If something's going to happen, it's not going to happen tomorrow, it's going to happen today. Or we'll have to kick it down the road till next week again. But some things need to happen, and they need to happen soon. Okay, let's play this just so you have it. I'm going to take a break. I got to make sure some things are being done here. Okay, I'll be back in about 3 minutes. All right. I think that's probably one of the most important short clips I've ever done, and it appears to be so more every day. There's really not much more I can say about what's happening in our country or around the world. As we've tried to flex our muscles and demand that our liberties be respected, they're very much pushing back. And I've long suspected that Trump was a placebo because they knew if they put Hillary in or anybody else that would really turn on us, it would happen too fast, and they had to do it slowly. Now, was Trump a party to that plan? Well, there are some indications that he is. But there are also some indications that he may be playing them as well. I don't know yet completely. But I do know this. You cannot lay all of your eggs in a politician's lap. You cannot have faith in the cult of personality, in a person, simply because you like them. If you don't ground yourself in principle and demand that your politicians do the same, I know how hard this is, but we're at a point now where if we don't make this choice and make it the right way and demand these principles be followed, which are plainly outlined for them. We're not asking them to be perfect. We're not asking them to be angels, gods, or whatever. We're saying, you have a contract with us. And as Marbury versus Madison says, you can't use legislative or executive power to violate our rights under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Okay? You can't do that. Let me read Marbury versus Madison here. This came out the other day. Several people were putting it on Twitter, and I made a copy of it. And I should have probably put it on here, but I think it'll do the job just for me to read it. It says, the law of the land. They'll try to tell you that when Congress or when a state legislature or a county passes a law, that that's the law of the land. No, it must be subject to the intents of the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. Let me read this. The general misconception is that any statute passed by legislators bearing the appearance of law constitutes the law of the land. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any statute, to be valid, must be in agreement. It is impossible for a law which violates the Constitution to be valid. This is succinctly stated as follows, quote, all laws which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void, unquote. Marbury versus Madison, 5 U.S., 2 Cranch, 137, 174, 176, 1803. I was 6 years off. It was 1803, not 1809. Go look that up. We have gotten off the track. And I'm not saying that we're going to be successful to get this rogue, this seditious, even treasonous government back under the charter that it's supposed to use to protect our liberties, not to fight against them. I don't know that we'll be successful in that. It's not looking good right now, not even under Trump. Even if Trump succeeds for another 4 years, I don't see him going down that road. And then what's going to happen after that 4 years, if all your hope is in Trump? I've often quoted Judge Learned Hand, who has said that if the Constitution, if the liberties of the people are not held in their hearts and in their minds, in the hearts and minds of men and women, if it's not there, it doesn't matter if it's in a Constitution, because there's no judge, no president, no Congress that's going to protect it. The only thing that protects it is the hearts and minds of the men and women that liberty needs to sit. And that's what they're trying to extinguish. I read out of my book, The Crimson Thread, about 2 weeks ago, a month ago, whenever it was, about the rise of the concept of the perfect law of liberty in the hearts and minds of the people, that the governments of the world feared, that was the movement they feared the most, and they've done everything they can to stop it. And that should not be news to anybody. But what is the gospel that was going to be preached to the whole world before the end comes? It's the perfect law of liberty. The gospel means good news, and the good news is what? The perfect law of liberty. James defined that. That's what it is. And where you sit, either to promote liberty or to destroy it. That's the division. Now you can say, no, it's if you accept Jesus as your Savior or not. I'm going to tell you, use principle, and you'll understand that it's the same thing. Okay, I'll go to chat for a little bit. Edelson James says Kelly is a traitor. By the way, Edelson, you're actually the one that helped me to see the thing from Headlines with a Voice, Nancy Morgan Hart first. I actually saw your DM to me. Thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've never trusted Kelly. You know, my Republican insider in California was, oh, wonderful Kelly. And I said, I don't like this guy. I don't like Kelly. There's something wrong here. The mere fact that he was, made it through the Obama purges and then some other things that I saw happening, I never trusted Kelly. I'm not sure you can say he's a traitor. The treason means something very specific, actually. But there's no doubt that in my mind, that he acted seditiously against the elected government of the United States. Yeah, William Mansfield, thank you for saying that. Yeah. William says Roy is encouraging Trump to do more. In other words, the right thing, right? Vindman was telling Trump to back down and give in to the deep state. Exactly. Yeah, I understand that there's that compact coming, Okiag. I understand that, but remember, I don't trust Barr. This situation with Project Guardian is very serious, and they're going to look at this the same. They're setting it up. It's just as plain as day to me. They're setting it up, even though Second Amendment is a right under the Constitution, and immigration is something that the federal government, is supposed to enforce. Okay, I understand that, but think about how they're going to try to sell this, and so I'm really worried. I'm really worried about what's happening here. At the very least, they're setting up a situation of civil war between states and possibly even an insurrection that they'll call it against the federal government. I could just see this coming because there's nobody in the federal government that protects the First, Second, or Fourth Amendments any longer. Nobody. But thank you for bringing that up. You might say, well, what are we supposed to do? What prepare? I've said it all along. You can't depend on the government to protect you anymore. You're going to have to make your own decisions, okay? That's just the way it is. You're going to have to get all the preparations that we've talked about. I don't want to sound like Alex Jones selling things, but you need to make your preparations in some way or another and decide what side of the fence you're going to be on, because you're not going to be able to sit on the top. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Yeah, I called out Vindman as a CIA operative right from the very start. I think I may have actually been the first one. But anyway, because see, I worked with CIA plants in the military. I know they're there. They even identified themselves to me because I was doing some MI work at the time. Okay, so I already knew it. Yeah, Deborah Milton, that's exactly my point. This one guy told me, he said, well, Trump's not going to sign it. He doesn't need to sign Project Guardian. This is a DOJ operation that he's allowing to go through. Deborah Milton says, Project Guardian couldn't get through the front back door, so they're sneaking through a cracked open window. Basically, that's right, under the pretense that they're making us safe by just withholding it from people that make threats or a danger to themselves or others, or a medical reason, more normally a mental thing, so that there's no way to really verify probable cause. Yes. The Constitution is very specific. You must have probable cause, and you must go through a court and use due process to take somebody's property. It's bad. Okay. Yeah, oilfield trash, the impeachment was all for show. The Democrats were just diverting attention. These people work together. Again, I want to believe that Trump is at odds with the establishment, especially with the intelligence state. I want to believe that. But look what's going on. He praises Xi, the way he's coming down on the people in China, Xi, on the coronavirus thing. They're not just locking people up, they're now killing them. And it's looking like they're using it as a cover to go after dissenters. We worry so much, we're told so much, even Trump with his whining on Twitter and saying how bad it is that no president should be treated this way. We're all looking at him and thinking that he's powerless. Now, with that, we excuse him not doing the things that he said he was going to do. Okay? And people say, of course not. Of course he can't do it. Look, they're blocking him here, they're blocking him there. But there are ways around that. But what I'm saying is that it's not an excuse. You can't use that as an excuse. If you're going to admit that you're being blocked, then you have to come to the American people, as Alex Jones has said, that Trump ought to do a fireside chat chat and explain what's going on. Oh, they've threatened his family. Hey, that's part of the job. One thing that is being said is that Trump apparently is, and I said this back, I think it was in October, November, that Trump tweeted out a thing where he says, well, I've been acting as if this impeachment was just about me or this coup was just about me, but I realize it's an overthrow of the American people. So he's already said that. Is he awakening? Is he getting, did he always have, or is he obtaining the moral and spiritual courage to actually take them on? Are we seeing that now? Well, we've had these false starts before where it looks like it's going to happen and then it stops. Again, what I'm saying is you can't count on it. You can't count on it. All of these, what if all this was done, as some people have said, this whole show, dog and pony show, has been done to keep us from watching out for our First, Second, and Fourth Amendment rights, watching out for the 5G dangers, for the vaccine dangers. Trump is now saying vaccines are okay. You got to be ready to stand on your own, and I know that's not going to be easy. Yeah, Trump, as a matter of fact, Trump just signed in December, I think it was. Somebody brings up the Patriot Act here. Well, we know that keeps getting renewed, and the NDAAs keep looking bad about, the detention calls and the funding of propaganda and all this different stuff. But I lost my train of thought there. I do that a lot these days. I'm trying to do too much at once. But at any rate, I'll probably remember in a few minutes and I'll get back on it. Okay, let's see. Oh, I was talking about immigration. Trump signed an immigration. It was part of a budget bill in December where, guess what he did? He funded sanctuary cities. He funded them. He said he wasn't going to. Why does he say he's not going to do something? Oh, because he wants to make sure the government keeps running? Hey, I don't give a damn if the government shuts down. Do you? I mean, I know that we need some of those services, but the government could get cut to 2/3 and it'd still be too big. So basically what he did is he signed another basically immigration bill allowing sanctuary cities to get funded. And yet, on the same token, he's got Barr supposedly going after certain sanctuary cities and whatever, and he's going to sue them. So basically what they've done is, if they funded these sanctuary cities, do you realize what they just did? They gave the cities and the counties and the states, whatever they are, they gave them the money to fight the suit against Barr. Do you see how idiotic this is? It's idiotic. Yeah, natural one. Some people, including some very high up folks, have been saying, "Hey, we need to stop paying our taxes, refuse it." Of course, they're gonna come after a lot of people that do that. But that is a vote. That really is a way to vote. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Edelson James, no. Be Trump's. I appreciate you saying that. No, I don't understand how the White House works. I really don't. Anyway, there are much better people for that than me, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, the resignations supposedly were a big deal. Everybody's saying they're firings. No, they just went to their former positions. There was really only one U.S. attorney out of all the NSC people and the 4 DOJ U.S. attorneys that left. Only one of them actually really did resign. Yeah. All the others went back to some other jobs and there were other agencies. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a big joke. Yeah, I don't. Sandy Devon, right now Schumer's calling for Barr removal. You know what? Why hasn't Barr moved to start arresting some of these people? Now, yes, in session, Congress and senators are immune, with some exceptions. I think sedition's one and treason's one. I don't think they're immune from those two things. Is it because they don't want to upset the government too much? They don't want to, really blow the whole thing up because it might just totally demolish itself? Maybe. People are saying, well, Barr's going to rip Schumer apart and Pelosi and all these people when he goes in for the hearing. Okay, yeah, he probably will. These people will not stop until they have force used on them. What's the title of my thing here? That they're ready to go to the aggressive phase, the aggression phase. We need to beat them to it. Barr and Trump, if they're serious, need to beat him to it. As Lionel says, arrest Hillary, if nothing more than for a jaywalking infraction. Arrest the bitch. And that goes for all the other people. Comey and McCabe apparently and Strzok are laughing about what Greg Rubini said. And they got out into the Gateway Pundit that said that there were going to be these arrests this week. Apparently they were laughing about it. Well, they know. They still have their contacts. They know what's going on. Trump's not fooling anybody. Nothing's happening in secret that the IC doesn't already know about. Guaranteed. So there's only one way to handle it. And Rich Higgins said it. Actually, it wasn't Rich Higgins. I'm sorry. It was Kurt Schlichter, Colonel Kurt Schlichter. In the Army, when you're training in combat, one of the things that you're trained to do is that if you're ambushed, what you do is you charge into you assault the ambush. Oh, hell yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. But they probably have a kill zone. They also probably have subsequent kill zones that they're going to force you into. So the only possible way out is to charge the ambush itself. That's where we are, ladies and gentlemen, and Trump has got to understand that. He can't be that cautious anymore because there's too much at stake. Okay, we've been going for an hour and 10 minutes, so let me bust down here and see if there's anything that I really need to address. I'd like to address everybody, but of course, we just never have the time for that, and I apologize. Boy, yeah. Kelly did say that Vindman did what was right. No, he didn't. If he had a problem, he should have gone to his chain of command. No. This was a seditious act to subvert the policies of the president, which is our elected representative. He doesn't have to follow the guidelines of anybody in the NSC. He doesn't. Those are guidelines. Those are suggestions, not absolutes. He's under no responsibility to do anything about that. And then even if he did say, look, we've got this corruption problem here in the United States. And of course, they put Biden in there to run for president so they could charge him with it, so they could accuse Trump of this, or else it's all a game. But the point is still made. Okay, he says to them, look, we don't have to release these funds until this is not what happened, but I'm just giving Kelly the benefit of the doubt. Trump says, we don't have to release these funds until whatever it was, the 30th of September or whatever, and we're not going to do that right yet. I want to make sure that you're going to help us investigate this corruption that's happening in your country and in ours. If that's the way, even if it didn't happen that way, the point is we need to eradicate this corruption from our own government. And if it takes doing something like that to do it, by all means. Yeah, our government is a criminal enterprise. It really is. Unfortunately, it is. Especially the intelligence state, which I've been warning about all these years. Well, that's interesting, Josh, and it wouldn't surprise me. I've had some problems with YouTube for a while. He says, I just love it when I click on a live stream and it takes me to an old video. It's been happening the last 2 weeks on any Patriot channel. Yeah, I know. There were some things that happened on my channel not too long ago, so yeah. Tinfoil hat, I know what you're saying. Crime stats prove the need for stop and frisk. Again, Are we going to trade principle for safety? That's the only thing I'm saying. Do we really want to go down that road? Because once you go down that road, it's bad. I'm saying the stop and frisk is fine, but you better be able to articulate a reasonable suspicion. Okay? And without that, if you're just stopping people, if you give somebody free reign of stop and frisk, it's going to go bad. I guarantee you, as far as liberties are concerned. If I was a police officer, if I had a reasonable suspicion, okay, I can approach that person. But just because somebody doesn't, I mean, what are they going to do with the cities like San Francisco with all the homeless on the street? Okay. Yeah, Karen Wilson, that's the right idea. A black person with nothing against black people, but if it's in a white area or in any area actually, just say any person with a leather coat on in summer trying to open my front door in daylight. Next day, my house broken into, things stolen. If I was a police officer and I saw somebody in a black coat trying to get in a door, and I did this, and police have to know their areas. That's why they need to get out of their damn cars and walk around and get to know the people. So when I was a police officer, just one example, we knew that there had been reports of a voyeur, a peeping tom in this, in the city. And we knew that it was happening between like 5 in the morning till about 6:30, somewhere in there. So I started looking for this guy. Well, guess what? I found him. I saw him. He was out of place, okay? He was out of place. And I was going to approach him, because of this situation. But he ran, okay? But I was going to approach him and do a type of stop and frisk thing and field card and all that, okay? Reasonable suspicion. He's in an area at the time of the day when we knew these things were happening, et cetera, et cetera. Well, he ran. Make a long story short, he ran into a pit bull that bit his butt. We were hopping fences, and he hopped this one fence. This pit bull was in there and bit him in the butt and held on as he tried to jump over another fence, and he lost about 2 pounds of meat out of his right buttock. Just as an example. But that kind of thing is what we're talking about. Okay? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. I'm glad you brought this up because we should say it every time. Happy Free Content says Trump's abandonment of Assange is a big red flag. Yes. His abandonment of Assange is a big red flag. His abandonment of Flynn is a big red flag. And they're trying to say, well, he made this, and he'll probably end up pardoning him if Sidney Powell can't get this thing thrown out. And the same with Stone. But Assange is a big deal. Also, Trump's abandonment of the First and Second Amendments is a big deal, and the Fourth. And I've called that all along. He's got to be strong on the First, Second, and Fourth. Without that, might as well forget about saving the American dream, because it's gone. Those are the foundations of what we've stood for over 200 years. And plus it goes back further than that, the Magna Carta and all that. If we let those go under some pretense of safety, we're done. We're absolutely done. Okay, dang it. It's really been an hour and 15 minutes. I'd love to go through some more of this. I'm sure you guys have said some great things, but I don't want to stay on here too long today. Well, that's an interesting statement. I see a lot of good things. Okay, so I'm going to let you go. I might be back on today because I'm watching to see if something big breaks. Maybe Alex Jones is right that there have been 200 firings in the State Department and the Justice Department and whatever. That might become public today. So that would be a big thing, and I'll be back on if that actually happens. But I have a feeling like it's another one of those things that Alex was fed that Alex gets all. Well, it's kind of like when Greg Rubini, nothing against Greg Rubini. Everybody sometimes jumps the gun or takes things wrong. And some big things did happen this week. Not saying he didn't, but remember when he said there were going to be some arrests of McCabe and Strzok this week, and I had the big question mark, will arrests happen this week, question mark, and I gave you the caveats. And Greg Rubini said that, he said maybe it was going to happen. Well, whatever. You sometimes go out on a limb like that, but sometimes Alex gets too boisterous and says things he shouldn't, because he gets too involved. So I'm not sure, but let's wait and see what happens. Maybe, in fact, they are going to do something this week, and we're going to see something, later today. As it sits right now, it's now 10:30 in D.C., so I'm going to shut down. Let's watch and see what happens today. Maybe we'll get some good news. All right. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you for coming. I hope you have a great day today, and if I need to, like I said, I'll be back on a little later. Okay? Out here for now.